Good. Can I go? Hello and welcome. This is TV 360 special. Well, today on the program we have Zainab Bayero, the daughter of late Ado Bayero, the longest serving Emir in Kano's history. Zainab has taken it upon herself to create a documentary about her father's life and reign as Emir. Zainab is right here in the studio. Thank you so much for joining me on the program. Before we begin, before we talk about your father, let's get to meet you. Tell us a little about yourself.
Well, my name is Zainab. I was born in Kano to my mom and my dad, and I was raised in Kano. And I'm a Muslim girl. I love to read. I love to write. I love movies. I love fashion. I love to travel. I'm shy, but I love adventure also. So basically, that's me.
All right. So you mentioned you love movies. So should we take it that that's one of the reasons why you've decided to create a documentary about your father? You've tagged the documentary "My Father, the Emir," and it's supposed to portray your father's life while he was on Earth. Can you talk to
Yes.
us about that?
Yeah, definitely. My love for movies kind of sparked this idea. I never thought I would be a filmmaker, but all my life I've been watching so many movies and reading. My favorite subjects were always literature, history. So a combination of all this made me come up with this incredible idea about my father's life. And the documentary, it chronicles the journey of a young prince born into this Asian dynasty who grows up to be a king and experiences the birth of Nigeria from post-independence till his demise. And it's his journey through Nigeria's evolving, political, social, economic changes and his part in it.
Okay. So would you say your relationship, or how would you describe your relationship with your father?
While he was alive, we had a very sweet, loving father-daughter relationship, and I adored him like most girls do. So I was heartbroken when he died 9 years ago in 2014. And the last year, I decided that this would be like a passion project for me where I'll get to tell his story. And a lot of people, I think, would love the story of this incredible monarch.
Okay, since you say you had a sweet relationship with your father, do you not think that this somehow influenced how you projected his life?
Yeah, I knew that would. I guess I knew a lot of people would think, yeah, I don't think she's been unbiased in telling his story because she's his daughter and she won't see his flaws or faults. And after giving it much thought, as a filmmaker and someone who loves stories about, real life figures, and I've read a lot about them, I thought that no, I would definitely tell his story because I researched extensively about him because he ruled for 51 years. That's even before I was born.
Yeah.
So there's a lot about him that I didn't know before. It's a lot I knew as he was my father, but there's a lot before I came into this world that I didn't know. So I had to research him like if I was doing a documentary about any other famous figure in the world, I have to dig deep and find out about the good, the bad, the controversial, everything. And yeah, so I put everything that I thought was the most interesting and pivotal moments in his life in this documentary. So I was as unbiased as I possibly
Well,
could.
you'll definitely say that, but how were you able to, when you rate the documentary you worked on, how would you say you conveyed? Do you think you did a good job in maybe conveying the message about your father's legacy while he was on Earth?
Yeah, I believe I did because this was a man who was revered and really admired by so many people, by his subjects, by political royal figures like himself. And his legacy was really about being a peacemaker and, a unifying force, especially in a divisive country like Nigeria, and with diverse groups of tribes and religious, different religions. So I thought that this was a great way to inform the world about his legacy of a man who didn't judge based on people's religion or status or social classes or tribe. He believed in Nigeria. He was a patriot. He's a man who loved his people, and he always wanted Nigeria to be the greatest country it could be. So he was an incredible monarch, and that's what I try to explore with this story.
You mentioned that you had to carry out research. Imagine researching about your father. Yeah. Well, you were not born, So were there any particular, say, surprises that you found out, while speaking to people while carrying out this research about your father that you did not even know about?
Yeah, the surprising aspects about him was the fact that he achieved so much at a young age. He worked really hard, even before ascending the throne. For a young prince to have been so, desperate to make his mark in the world. He began as a clerk in the British Bank of West Africa. He became a legislator in the Northern Regional House of Assembly. He became a young politician. Then he became the chief of police at the Kano Native Authority, and after that he became a diplomat. He was an ambassador to Senegal before finally being called upon to ascend the throne. So I found these aspects of him really shocking and awe-inspiring, because it's not easy to achieve so much at a young age, and that was like decades ago. So those facts about him I found really surprising.
All right. So 51 years as Emir is a long time. So how did you decide on the structure and the timeline rather, of his life that you put into the documentary?
Yeah. I think that was the whole, aspect of a bit difficult as a first-time filmmaker, like figuring out which parts would come into the story, which parts would be cut out, because he had such a long life and an extensive life. Even 51 years, like you said, is a long time. And even before ascending the throne, like I just said, he had, different jobs and different aspects. He made his mark in different fields already. And that's the reason he was called to the throne. So I had to make sure that the most important parts of his life were explored in this documentary, from his childhood to being a young prince trying to, navigate his way, and then finally the most important and difficult aspects on the throne and his reign. So I explored all that in this documentary.
Well, 51 years, like I said before, and most people would know that by now. Your father was a vocal person when it came to Boko Haram, and he clearly made some enemies. So did you put this aspect into the documentary you worked on, so the negative side of not really his life, but at least the journey, the work, some of the things he did.
Yeah, some dark moments.
Yeah. But did you put that into the documentary?
It's also part of it. I don't want to give too much of it, but yes, even his dark times.
Okay, so all right. So your first timer. As a filmmaker, what were some of the challenges you faced, especially as a lady and a first-time filmmaker?
Definitely. As a woman, it's not easy being in a male-dominated field, and filmmaking, like I said, is just a passion of mine, and it's been something that I loved. I've always been curious about the whole filmmaking process. I grew up watching behind the scenes, directors and producers talking about, how it is about making movies. So when I decided to do this, I had the support of my mom. And I told her, I said, you know what, I have an idea, I want to make a movie. And surprisingly, she was okay with it. She's like, yeah, if you feel you can do it, then go for it. I was like, okay. And then I decided to do this. It was completely on my own, produced, directed. I wrote the script on my own, and it was really a challenging and amazing experience. But the difficult parts were definitely getting a crew to work with me. you know, getting the right person that will understand your vision and be patient and work with you. And of course, the research, you know, researching about your father, like you said, and it's a subject at the same time. You know, you have to like think this is not just my father. You have to view him as a subject that you're researching and you're talking about. And of course, you know, choosing which aspects, filming on location, everything was really like exhausting and tiring. But in the end, it felt great, you know, to just be done and, you know, have that last shot of your movie. It was like an exhilarating feeling. So yeah, I loved it. Every part of it.
All right. So this has been interesting, but we'll get more details from you in a bit. We have to go on a break. So
Okay.
let's take a break. We'll be right back. All right. Are we good? All right. So we're coming back.
Okay.
Well, welcome back to the program. If you're just joining us, you're watching TV 360 special. And with us today is Zaina Bayero, the daughter of late Ado Bayero, the longest serving emir in Kano's history, who will go down and, you know, as one of Nigeria's most prominent and revered Muslim leaders. Before we went on a break, you were speaking about filmmaking, and I would like to know, when did you start? When did it end? When did you conceive the idea of working, you know, on a documentary about your father?
Yeah, it was last year, October. Like I said, I was discussing, brainstorming different ideas, and my mom was like, I think these ideas are great, but what about your dad? I was like, oh, I don't know about that. I don't think that's what I want to begin with. And she was like, I think he's a great subject. And this would be the first time something like this would be done about him ever since he died. And for that reason, I said, okay, yeah, let's start. So that was the beginning. And the first thing I did was to write the script. And that took about a month. Okay. Because I was going back and forth, you know, trying to perfect it and try to like get the most interesting aspects and work on what I thought would be really thought-provoking, you know, in the storyline. And then after the story was complete, I had to get a crew, like I said before. Then we started shooting. And after shooting, we got the archives and we put it together to the editing process. So it took about 6 months. Yeah, it was done this year, like May. So that was the time period it took. 6 months, yeah, I guess so.
6 months. So the documentary you worked on, I know you hope that it evokes some kind of emotions from viewers. So what do you hope to, what message or impact do you hope to convey through this documentary about your father?
Yeah, this is a man who symbolizes the great Fulani Caliphate. You know, he became an emir at such a young age. He was the second youngest in history of Kano. He was 33 years old. And he became the longest at the same time. So I want people to get the message that this was a man who preached and believed in peace and harmony, and he got to experience the darkest times in Nigeria's history, the greatest moments, and he represents an amazing part of this country, you know, not just the north, because this was a man who tried to like make certain decisions that would affect people in different parts of Nigeria. And I think that people would love to, see an incredible monarch, but also the man behind that legend, who he was, how he grew up, what shaped him to be this person, and that, believed in Nigeria and the legacy of peace and hope and progress. So I think that at the end of the documentary, I hope that that's what the message they get from this documentary.
Okay, so during the course of the documentary, the filmmaking process, did you speak to people about your father? You clearly said you carried out research. So were people involved? Did you speak to people about your father? And what are some of the most common things that were said about him? Was he a good man? Was he not so great? Just their thoughts. What were some of the common things that you got from people?
Most people that I spoke with, like 99%, were all positive. He was loved, he was admired, he was a religious leader who cared so much about, Islam, like Islamic causes. He always went to madrasas, he encouraged the building of mosques and constructions of madrasas, and he also, like I said, he was a peacemaker. During times of riots and chaotic moments in Kano, he was always, preaching about peace and restraint. He never wanted violence in his domain. He always encouraged that people should be more accepting and patient and understanding in very, very tumultuous times in Kano's history. So those were the feedbacks I always got from people. Like, this was a man who loved his people, who respected people. He was humble, he was kind, he was honest, he was, a brave man. He was honorable. So those were the positive feedbacks I really got from people. There were always like positive comments, and people really miss him, They miss his reign, it was a lifetime. So, it's like pieces of him are still in every part of Kano, people from the market, whether it's the riders on the street, they have pictures of him, and the tricycles, they're just, the young, the old, the middle-aged, they just have such a warm place in their heart for him, because he was such a loved king, and to feel that he was their father, the grandfather, he was like everything to them, and losing him was like a great loss. So those are the comments I got from lots of people.
Interesting. Can you tell us just one thing, or some of the things that your father established as the Emir that people still inculcate in their everyday lives up until today? It could have been words, it could have been, like you said, the peace, so a man who loved peace. What are some of the things that you think about, that he did while he was alive, and till today people still inculcate them into their everyday lives?
The fact that he was extremely patient, gentle. So I think that aspect of him is what they really admired. His gentle nature, his advocacy for peace, and his love of religion, always trying to preserve that, because Kano has always been an Islamic state, and he became a custodian of Islam and tradition, but at the same time he tried to usher in like a modern era to Kano, because it's a cosmopolitan city with different tribes and races, coming to create a livelihood, businesses, and he always encouraged people to be more accepting of different tribes and religions. So I think that would definitely be his legacy, and that's what people, I think, love and emulate about him.
Okay, before I ask you the next question, you've covered the microphone with your jacket.
Okay.
All right. So you worked on this film, you worked on this documentary, and would you say you are a reflection of the kind of man you've spoken about that your father was?
From a young age, I knew I was not that typical Fulani girl, because not full Hausa. My mom is from Edo State.
Right.
So that mixture in me kind of made me a person that loves people irrespective of tribe and religion, because I was never fully accepted because I don't really act like that Fulani girl. So I experienced it growing up in school. So yeah, I'm definitely someone who believes in, you know, different people, no matter the race, no matter your religion, we should all live together in harmony and peace. I hate judgmental people. I'm sorry.
So when you say you were not accepted, were you acting as a rebel, or why do you think you were not accepted?
No, I wasn't a rebel in any way. But, you know, just me not being full Hausa was never really, because in the school I was one of the few people who was mixed, like one or two. You know, everyone else was full-blooded Hausa. So I couldn't really speak the language that much. I wasn't really always covered, you know, so that really wasn't accepted, you know. I was kind of seen as a misfit, you know. So that made me this kind of girl that loves, you know, harmony. I accept people no matter their religion, no matter who they are, you know. I try to encourage that in my views in everyday life, you know. I think that we have that in common, because I'm someone who believes that no matter where you're from, no matter what you do, we're all human beings and we need to live in peace. So I hope to be like him and carry on his legacy of promoting like unity and peace, and encouraging people to believe in themselves no matter what. And I hope to be able to carry on his legacy, because it's a great legacy.
Okay, so we can clearly see you've begun your career as a filmmaker. Do you hope to continue on this path?
Yes, absolutely. I loved working on this, and I would love to do more, because it was so much fun and it was exciting. You know, telling stories through the visual medium is incredible. Like I said, I've always been fascinated with movies, and I know the feeling I got from watching great movies. So I hope that I can give someone else that feeling with my work. So I'd love to do more of this.
Okay. What are some of the important points you would like for viewers to know about this documentary? Something that you probably haven't said to anybody, you know, since it was created. So would you like to speak to us about it? Anything at all about this documentary?
About the documentary?
Yes.
I guess it's about his incredible life, and we get to see controversial aspects of his reign that most people would remember, but a lot of people don't really talk about it either. And this had to do with like certain political figures in his life, you know, and I explore that, and I guess that would be really interesting to watch.
All right. So is it out? When will it be out? What has been their reaction to it? Just give us.
No, I have not released it yet.
So when will it be released?
I hope to get it on streaming platforms, you know, either Netflix, Prime. You know, I think that would be a great medium for different people in different parts of the world to watch this story. I don't want it just to be a Nigerian or African story, because we have great stories, and I think the world needs to see our stories told by us. And this is the kind of story that the world needs to know about a great monarch who represented an enduring dynasty and his triumphs and great deeds for a period of 5 decades. So I think this is a story for the world, and I hope to get it out there.
Do you think you were able to project, finally, do you think you were able to project the Fulani tribe, you know, positively in this your movie?
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot of the Fulani culture that's explored in this movie, which isn't always the case. You don't see the Fulani in pop culture or mainstream movies or media. So I think this is the first time you get to experience that beautiful culture. And yeah, I guess the Fulani should be proud.
So we look forward to seeing this documentary and hopefully enjoying it. It's been great talking to you,
Thank
Zainab.
you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you for
much.
having me.
Thank you for coming on the program. Well, that's our program for today. Thank you so much for watching. I am Mary Kanu. So if you're good.